favorite thing about Dream Camp is just being here.
It's a good place. It's not like a summer camp where you just leave your kids and then they come home not taken care of. It's a place where you're safe. It's a learning experience.
We kept saying to ourselves to do a camp like what we do in the suburbs in the city, in Philadelphia, so the kids don't have to see that you got to leave the city to go find a program like this.
Dream Camp is a place where we can express ourselves. We don't feel too pressured, or we don't feel like too confined to, not do what we like to do, and we don't feel as though, I don't feel as though I have to fit into like the status quo.
Our kids would go from working with a professional musician to an architect to a professional dancer, and then they would go to lunch, and the lunch program was the most undream-like, part of the day.
Lunch at school is just really, really bad. It tastes really, really bad. Like, they'll usually give us this weird stuffed noodle, and it's just gross. And like you try to take it out, and then it just oozes all over the plate.
Yeah, it was lunch meat. It was not a healthy group of options for our campers. There was juice with lots of sugar in it.
We would see kids eating what the USDA would provide, which was in the USDA's eyes acceptable. But tater tots and chocolate milk and fried foods don't cut it. We're seeing a large percent of our kids were becoming obese or were already obese.
And then when they're walking down the street, they've got all the the fast food and all those areas that are competing.
This morning in Health Watch, clogged arteries in obese children.
5 children in the United States are diagnosed with obesity.
Morbid obesity is increasing.
Diabetes have increased tenfold because of rising rates of obesity.
There's an obesity epidemic. 9 million kids are overweight.
It's officially the biggest health crisis in American history.
And 3 children is now considered overweight.
Nutritionists say obesity is the biggest threat to
13-year-old
public
kids
health.
who look like 45-year-olds on the inside.
Long-term impact of chronic illnesses stemming from being overweight could crush this country's healthcare system. It is quite possible that for the first time in our nation's history, we will have a generation of children who are sicker and die younger than their parents.
I came back and approached my friend Mark Vetri, who's a successful chef, a James Beard winning chef, and who has 3 famous restaurants here in the Philadelphia area, with the hope of getting him excited.
He first asked us to just basically come up with a menu, and I actually mentioned to him that I would like to do more than only come up with the menu, that I would like to actually run it.
And the hardest we had to deal with was dealing with the government agencies that were involved in allowing us to do what we want to do with the kids.
It's a really serious and costly medical issue, but it's also a psychosocial issue. It's tough to be the most overweight kid in the class. Overweight kids we've shown here in Philly actually go to school less, and not surprisingly, if they're in school less, their academic performance suffers. So it's a really complex problem to solve, but it also has a myriad of consequences.
The USDA is heavily, and I think too heavily, involved in what we feed our kids, even during the school year, not just in camp.
Without even seeing the menu, I got rejected the first time by the first person who picked up the phone, simply because it was family style, and that we weren't following the approved menu that the USDA has. And so I respectfully said, I appreciate your feedback. Could I speak to your supervisor? And so right away, she put me on hold, and the next person got on. And they said, how can I help you? And I explained it, and she said, yeah, I know. The person just told me you spoke to them. And she said, no.
No, the issue has always been, we feed our kids in the inner cities, in schools that qualify for free and reduced lunch. We feed them as an afterthought.
And so I called Harrisburg, and I said, here's the situation. Who makes the decision on approving a menu when you want to feed kids from an underserved area, and you want it to qualify possibly for the grant that you're going to hopefully give us? And the person said, you're talking to them. I said, great. So could I forward you something before you say yes or no, just to look at? And they said, sure. And so I sent the menu. I took off Mark's name and I sent it to them, the PDF, and I said, what would you say if I had 2 James Beard award-winning chefs who've created the menu that's in front of you, and that they would be cooking this food from scratch, and they would be putting together their heart and soul of finding healthy foods sourced from local farmers in the area, and they would be really trying to make a difference in the lives of these kids. What would you say? And he said, well, where do I sign?
Everything from, making sure that children introduce themselves to you when you walk into a room, they shake your hand, they're learning to make eye contact. And these are such crucial life skills and also self-esteem building skills that many children are not given that opportunity or taught those in their day-to-day lives.
We saw behavior infractions decrease significantly, where we were averaging somewhere in the area of 22 a day last year, and it was coming somewhere in the area of averaging around 4 a day this year.